Hello, humans. This is your. Not exactly sure this is a proper power report, but it's a power report-y sort of thing. Um, but yeah, doing a stream here. Folks, I am happy to be joined by Sachi. It has been a long time coming, but we are able to make it work. I'll bring him on stage right now once this siren goes past me. But Sachi, good to see you, man. How's it going?
I'm alive. I live. I'm here, much to the detriment of my haters. No, I'm just kidding. Here I am. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, all I'm saying is that ever since, wow, it's going crazy outside already, but ever since Sachi came back into the scene, Charlie Kirk has been real quiet.
I'm just saying.
We report, you decide. No, yeah, I've slightly adjusted my camera setup. I have a capture card, so I should be coming in a little bit better. Definitely gonna turn on another light once I get a chance. But just for the agenda, this is gonna be a good old sort of like reaction stream. There's a couple things I wanted to go through while Sachi is on, because I'm not going to hold him hostage all night. I gave him dealer's choice for which one we start with, and we're going to start with the interview that Khanna did on higher learning with Van Lathan and Rachel Lindsay. I have not seen the interview yet, but I found the Khanna, like the prospect of him running for president, which he's, all but confirmed in many interviews that he's been doing recently. I always found it to be an interesting prospect. I got to see a lot of his rise, his much like Andrew Yang, he had an early embrace of alternative, non-traditional media that I think helped to propel a lot of his success. And so to see Khanna kind of use that to build his own niche has been interesting. I'll be very interested to see how it goes. But going into this, as I get this queued up, Sachi, what are your thoughts on Khanna? Like, what are some things where you're like iffy about him, or stuff you like about him?
I'm iffy about him. He's in my opinion, this is a very basic description of it. What I think of him, he's your basic kind of progressive, sort of borderline on the liberal Democrat side. He's going to go against the grain in some capacity, but for the most part, over his career, I haven't been particularly blown away by anything to the point where I think, oh, he's a legitimate, even presidential candidate. It's been, somewhere between this stock trading issues, which you can explore on a whole other tangent down the line, but between that and his kind of flip-flop stance on Israel, the arms embargo, he's all right. I'll put it that way. I don't think he's like anything blowing me away.
Yeah, like this isn't a Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
But this also isn't, I've got my qualms with AOC, especially recently, so I'm not even going to say, but or Rashida Tlaib, right? Yeah. So, but he's like, I feel like he would elevate Rashida Tlaib, who has been pushing a Medicare for All bill in the House for a long time. Same with Bernie Sanders in the Senate. So, I think he'd be an ally to these things. I think that he's savvy in that I was kind of alluding to the Andrew Yang thing. He uses his main weather vane is alternative media. So like something that was really striking, I think he was doing an interview with NPR actually that I listened to pretty recently. So he's definitely on this circuit. And Khanna said something along the lines of, if you think I'm a radical, you should see the people who are right behind me, who are in their 20s and 30s. Like, I'm the nice guy in a suit who's telling you that if we don't do these things like a wealth tax, there's going to be radicals behind me who with pitchforks and torches. And I was like, oh, that's a jank line. I don't know if you recognize it the same way I did, but like that's definitely a line that Jank used to use on his like sort of speaking towards in mainstream media. I don't even think he was running at the time, but I remember him saying a very similar thing. Like, like he is the calm, sensible person before like the pitchforks and torches come. And you know, I don't mean to draw too many of the comparisons from Cenk to Ro Khanna beyond that, but I'll say that like, you know, because he's been, you know, on Kyle Kalinski's show, Cenk's, all these other different ones. I only mention them because like he's had his finger on the pulse of movements like Justice Democrats and kind of the beginnings of DSA getting a foothold in the House. I think he's been there for that. And while he naturally, I think, has to keep a distance because as progressive as he can be, he is also the congressman for Silicon Valley, like literally. So a lot of I think he's even said it in previous interviews. He might even say it here. I think like there's 40 billionaires who live or have their offices in Ro Khanna's district. So you know that's that's some influence that I think is going to be there as well, and I think that's what you have to watch when it comes to him. It may. I was actually going to stop. I'll say it just because I'm going to be proven right, but I don't think his proximity to tech is going to save him from the amount of money that is going to be spent against him in the Democratic primary. And, you know, if somehow he makes it to the general, I don't think that's going to, I think it's going to happen. I think the same thing's going to happen where his good graces and his good relationship with tech is not going to save him from the onslaught of campaign ads that are going to come his way. Elon Musk very much does not like Ro Khanna. Used to like him, very much does not. Scapegoats him all the time. So those are my thoughts so far on Ro. Are you ready to get this show on the road?
Let's do it.
But good for Gabby. Good to see you in chat. Squishmallow Dragon, first ever and longest Twitch subscription. Appreciate you. Pinkerbell also agree, like the stream on the way in, y'all. Thanks for reminding people, and thank you for being here. HBX as well. Great to see you. Almost I caught you in there, but there you are. Okay, so here, let me get this set up and started. And yeah, so here is going to be the Ro Khanna interview on higher learning. I'm going to do it like 1.15 times speed and see how that goes for people. But let me get it going here. All right, let us begin. Oh no, I don't like that. Let's do. Oh, I don't like that either. Let me try this. There we go. All right.
Back again, friend of the podcast is joining us, California Congressman Ro Khanna.
I'm glad I'm still described as a friend. That's a good thing.
Why wouldn't you be a friend?
Of course I am. And,
Sometimes you gotta. This is the thing. This is friends where I'm from in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Friends don't mean that you never have disagreements. Friends don't even mean that you never have fights. Friends mean that you have trust.
That's a good point.
So you trust that someone's heart is in the right place, even when you disagree with them. You trust that a good outcome for them is a good outcome for you. I think right now we think about friends as people who are inside of a political circle that's insulated from any criticism. But friends means, hey, I know that you want the best.
That's a huge compliment. As a politician.
It is a huge compliment,
right?
Yeah.
Because
trust is the most precious commodity right now.
Right.
That a lot of people have lost trust.
Exactly.
In the entire system, and certainly in politicians, we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to trust.
Right. Well, I don't trust you.
I thought
as a politician, I trust
as a human being.
That you have a vision, and that vision aligns with what I think like undergirds good humanity. But as a politician,
you got to hold people accountable.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. let's start there. Okay, when will you formally announce your run for president?
I'll make a decision in Thanksgiving.
Okay,
and after that, I'll tell you why. Then, first of all, genuinely, we need the focus on the midterms,
right,
and can't distract from it. And then after that, it's a very personal decision. You got to talk to your family and really think, okay, are you ready to do this and put your family through that? And my guess is,
Sachi, you can feel free to come off of mute or whatever at any time. But I saw you already say Thanksgiving decision means he's running. I mean, like,
100%.
At least he's not doing the will I won't I thing that, like, you know, people like Gavin Newsom have been doing, or Kamala Harris. Yeah, I'm not even gonna walk into the trap of like trying to gauge how serious Kamala Harris is, because I just think that'd be a terrible idea and she knows it. But from what I've heard, the big donors of the Democratic Party are like, we need a white dude, and we're not going to spend any money unless it's a white dude. And Pete Buttigieg barely counts as that.
I think it's going to be Newsom ultimately, and that's going to be who they shove down the pipe.
I am almost certain it's not going to be Newsom. I've said this before on the show, so I won't go like super into it. But I think, a lot of rules can be thrown out of the window, but I think it's a general rule that whoever is the favorite to win before the primaries even started is usually the first person to flame out. But we shall see. I think, Gavin makes a strong case, but I don't think he's going to have a lot of appeal. But we'll see about Roe.
The 20 people speculated, half of them will say, yeah, let's do it. And half of them will say, maybe it's not the right time. I mean, it's not, I don't think people just assume, oh, they're just making this stuff up. Like, it's a very, very deeply personal decision to do that. And you're putting people through a lot.
What are you basing your decision on?
Well, two things. One, I've been going around the country on my economic vision, which is saying, look, I represent a district. It's got a third of the nation's wealth, $20 trillion. His economy is working fine for 989 billionaires. They have 22% of the economy. But what is it doing for the people I grew up with in Bucks County? I have a vision of how we make this economy of the future actually work for every American, every community. And I'm sharing some of my ideas and seeing what the feedback is. And do I have the right economic vision for our time? That's the political question. And then on a personal question, just is my family, are folks ready to do this? It's a grueling process. You get attacked every day. You don't get more popular doing it. You get criticism from morning to night. And so, and am I ready? And so those are the two things.
Economic vision. I know that's something that you're going around talking about. You describe yourself as a progressive capitalist. We've been talking a lot about capitalism on this show.
Right.
Explain what that means and how that fits into your economic vision.
What it means is I believe in entrepreneurship. I believe in small business. I believe in free enterprise. But what I don't believe in is a free enterprise system that is only enriching billionaires and isn't giving a fair shot to the vast majority of Americans, the people I grew up with in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Let me give you a few statistics.
Please.
We have 250 billionaires in California.
Again, Sachi, you can just shout out, like, pause it Sam Cedar style whenever you want to, because I already see your face moving. I'll just say that from the NPR interview that I heard from him, he mentions Bucks County, Pennsylvania, probably to get the stench of California off of him strategically. But just if you're doing a drinking game, you can take a sip. Don't do shots. Take a sip every time he mentions Bucks County.
That's fair. I was going to say, though, this reminded me exactly of what was it Joe Biden said? Maybe it's a stretch, but it reminded me exactly of when he said, "I'm a capitalist, not a unchecked capitalist," or something like that. But it's the same energy for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching here, but it just I don't know. We'll see what he says continuing down this. But
I remember what you were saying. It's like trying to distance himself from any sort of the like the stench of socialism, the stench of any of those sort of things. Which is, when you're running at that sort of like national level for the president, there is not likely that I don't want to get too far into it right now, but I just don't think it's likely that running on or like as an out and about socialist on the national level, outside of state races, like, for Senate and things like that, I don't think it's going to necessarily work that well for a presidential candidate. If for no other reason than the Democratic Socialists who are elected and are headed to office are still capitalists and moderates on like a general political stage, but we're such a far right-wing country. It's crazy like that. But continuing here, I'll go back a little bit.
Being a fair shot to the vast majority of Americans, the people I grew up with in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Let me give you a few statistics.
Please.
We have 250 billionaires in California. You know what they're worth? They're worth $2.4 trillion, about half the California economy. 250 people. So I've said, okay, let's tax them 5% so every Californian can get health care. So we actually can have people employed in the healthcare field. You know how much they'd be worth if we did a 5% tax? They'd be worth $2.3 trillion. And yet they ran a primary against me. They're upset about me. They're saying I'm economically illiterate. Have you ever watched The Scandal with Kerry Washington's character? She's got this line. I don't
Smart,
understand.
bro.
I don't understand people who have everything but still want more. That's how I feel about the California billionaires in this state.
You are getting criticism though for you wanting to tax. Like, what's your response to that? Is any of it valid? Like, I know Mark Cuban's been very vocal. Like, can you speak to that?
Well, look, first of all, they go to the edge cases, right? Well, what about the paper billionaire who's worth $1 billion and just doesn't have liquidity? Like, is that the average person you're concerned about right now? When people don't have childcare, they don't have health care, they don't have a job, and you're worried about the guy who's going to have $1 billion valuation and their liquidity? 250 billionaires, 61% of them have liquid stock. So it doesn't even apply to them. For the folks, when you start your $1 billion company and you have $1 billion valuation, you come talk to me. For them, they get a deferral. They don't have to pay the tax until they actually have a realization event. But the reality is, on one side, you've got 250 billionaires. And on the other side, you've got poor kids who don't have health care, millions of Californians who don't have health care. And these same billionaires who are complaining, they're the ones who caused the problem because half of them supported Trump. And I didn't hear them bugging out when he said we're going to cut their taxes to cut Medicaid.
Right.
They're the ones who caused the whole problem. And we're now saying tax them, and they're complaining. And you know why they're coming after me? Because they think it's a betrayal of one of their own, because I represent Silicon Valley.
I was going to ask you that.
I got the fancy degree at University of Chicago, economics. I taught at Stanford. I worked at Wilson Sonsini, tech law firm.
I'm just going to scoot to the side the fact that he literally went to the Chicago School of Economics, which is one of the most conservative economic schools in the world. Like, people should do research into Salvador Allende in Chile and the Chicago boys, who basically kind of created the roots for figures like, I know this is Argentina, but Javier Milei, and the sort of libertarian bent that you see in a lot of South American countries. It comes directly from the Chicago school, and that's literally what they're called, Chicago School of Neoliberal Economists. So I'm just going to put that aside for a moment. But, there he goes. He's mentioning a lot of these things about the root of how billionaires avoid taxes by not actually having things like on paper, not actually having realization events of the stock or other, non-cash ways that they get paid and make their money. That's a good thing that I'm glad he's pointing out, for sure.
I was going to agree with you on that. I think another issue is that with so many candidates, just say, we got to tax the billionaires, but there's not really a breakdown of it. While it's boring talk on paper, it's boring talk. It's actually helpful to be able to digest these issues and actually break it down for people in a way that's, oh, okay, so this is how it's affecting me. Like here's the math behind it all, right? That's what I'm dealing with, and I think it's important to do that. And too many times we see so many brushstrokes of general, campaign speech that doesn't really do this. And I know a podcast is the best outlet for that, not really a campaign speech in of itself, but I think I agree. It's a good thing that he's doing that.
Oh, I thought he was one of the normal people. He's talking about taxing billionaires. That's why it's under their skin. A lot of other people, they talk about it, they don't come after him. But it's like, okay, this guy's saying this. Now maybe people will feel like this isn't radical. This is just common sense economics.
Well, describe the income inequality or the wealth inequality in your district again. What did you say the numbers were?
So 1/3 of the nation's wealth is in my district. The whole stock market is worth about $70 trillion in America.
Yeah.
We have about $20 to $25 trillion in a 50-mile radius. Apple, Google, Tesla, Broadcom, NVIDIA, all over $1 trillion companies. And by the way, we're going to get a $6 trillion company, AMD. It's around $800 billion. Yeah. And right outside my district is Anthropic, which is going to be a 2 to 3 trillion when they go public.
All the heavy hitters. Yeah.
All the heavy hitters.
My question for you is, how long have you been in Congress?
10 years.
Okay. So if I'm an average American, why would I trust you
Can you
and
pause real quick?
your economic vision when this?
I don't want to be that guy, but there's literally a couple headlines going around from last week. And this headline says Khanna made profitable bets on Apple and Tesla, which is interesting because, when he's doing these stock trades and he's saying this, it's like, okay, man, you're putting your money not where your mouth is, kind of also where your mouth is at the same time. Like, they don't really align in that regard. That's what I was getting at earlier. But, again, we can let him finish his spiel here.
No, I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's sitting in the back of my head too. picking up the baton where Pelosi left it, truly, when it comes to this sort of like looks like insider trading, smells like insider trading sort of stuff. I think some of those trades were like right before major events for some of these. I think one of them was an AI company, but you know, it's happens.
This inequality is best summed up and okay. So if I'm an average American, why would I trust you and your economic vision when this inequality is best summed up? Like you're the home of it in your district. Well, it ballooned and exploded on your watch in the place where you're supposed to protect people.
Because I've been calling and sounding the alarm since 2016, since I got to Congress. I've been going to deindustrialized communities. Why deindustrialized communities? Because I grew up in Pennsylvania where the steel mill shut down. I've been going to Johnstown. I've been going to Milwaukee. I've been going to Lordstown. I've been going down south to places like Orangeburg. And I've been saying, you can't have all the wealth in one place. I ran saying we got to get Silicon Valley's wealth, not just working for Silicon Valley, but working across America. And I've been saying tax this wealth, not now. I've been saying it since 2016 and 2020 when I supported Bernie Sanders. I've been calling for an internet bill of rights, saying that people should own their own data. I have been calling for antitrust and standing up to tech billionaires. Now you're saying, well, I didn't get it done. Okay, I'm one person out of 435 people, and Bernie lost twice. But if you look at my record, I have been advocating that the wealth concentration shouldn't be taking place here. And what my argument is going to be is, I know these people. I've stood up to these people. You have to understand the future economy.
I will say, on the flip side of these billionaires especially are freaking out against them, especially Musk and Mark Cuban and, you know, whoever. And you're seeing, you know, opinion pieces saying, Bro Khanna or Zoran don't know what they're talking about with these taxes. These schemes don't work. I mean, he's kind of doing something right, at least in that regard. So he's taking the messaging to them, which is hopeful to start with. But again, I want to be able to see how he truly backs that up.
Yeah, that's a good analysis, I think. Earlier when I was talking about, like it's way too early, but how do we think the primaries are going to go? We don't even know everyone who's like fully announced. We know like it's probably going to be Ro Khanna, probably going to be Gavin Newsom, probably AOC. There's a couple of others in there, but regardless of whose chances there are, right? The best candidates or the best you can do, I think, both just personally for a career, but also if you want to win. And if you're, you know, a Mark Gravel issue candidate and you're just trying to like get onto a big stage and get attention like Mike Gravel did when he was running for president, I think, against Biden, pointing out Biden's love of war, and boy, that come back to us. But I like that Ro Khanna is making his thing. Okay, no, I'm going to talk about the Silicon Valley broligarchy. I'm going to talk about taxing billionaires. Even if Ro Khanna doesn't crack like 2 or 3% in the primaries, because he's talking about these things, that's going to be something that hits a debate stage, and that's going to be something that one of the candidates who does win is going to end up having to answer questions on the record for. So that's good. And I think that's much more helpful than Gavin Newsom, who isn't really, you know, he's licking his fingers, seeing which way the wind is blowing and trying to figure out from there. He doesn't really have any affirmative agenda set or any sort of like affirmative policy ideas that he's willing to stand by, because he's a poll test politician. He's looking to be whatever people want to ascribe to him, which I don't think it's a good strategy. But at some point we'll Higher Learning actually did do a great interview of Gavin Newsom. Definitely not going to watch it tonight, but I do recommend folks watch that. That's why they call it The Ringer, because Gavin Newsom went into it. And Wanda, I agree with what you're saying here. Good on Van for asking good questions. I think, yeah, of all the leftist shows that get these big political figures, I generally trust Higher Learning among a couple other shows to like ask tough questions, even if they're politicians that we're more in agreement with. I'll continue playing this here.
To be able to
I'll also be right back.
stand up to these folks and be able to have an economic vision for everyone else. And I've taken small steps. You know, I did partnerships with HBCUs, with Claflin, with Benedict College, with South Carolina State, with 34 HBCUs. We got NVIDIA and Google to create $5,000 scholarships, 9-month course, $70,000 to $80,000 jobs. We got a few hundred people. It's not life changing, but we got a few hundred people. We've got to scale that with HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutes, HBCUs, public colleges. Why are we not giving more people access, first of all, to the wealth generation of the modern economy? I've been working on that for 10 years, not now. And then secondly, why don't we have a tax on these billionaires? You know what $4 trillion would do? 5% tax on 989 billionaires, who are worth 22% of our economy. $4 trillion, you could get free college in America. You could get free childcare in America. You could get Medicare. You could get all of Medicare for all. I'm for Medicare for all, but you could get Medicare expanded to 50. That's 200 billion, basically. You could do all of that.
Right. I mean, you could do all of that now, but like you could do that, all of that right now if priorities were different. I'll say something about those HBCUs. Those HBCUs don't necessarily need the philanthropy of NVIDIA. What they need is a system where most of those are land grant universities, where they're not intentionally underfunded for money that they should have from the government, right? The government is robbing HBCUs because the systems in place to make sure that HBCUs are funded are being intentionally dismantled by people who don't want to see Black kids learn. So that's a systemic issue that really should be dealt with, whether NVIDIA or AMD or Anthropic or anybody else gets involved. But let me stay here for 1 second. Progressive capitalism, describe what that is, because anybody that was skeptical about why things haven't changed in your district would say that they haven't changed because your overall outlook is in league with the people that control the resources of that district, right? So like, if you describe yourself as a capitalist, well, under you, the capitalists will always win because you believe in that.
So let me answer both points. On the HBCUs, you're absolutely right in terms of the endowments and the funding, right? If you look at the HBCUs that produced W.E.B. Du Bois and Martin Luther King and Toni Morrison and all of these great scientists and leaders, you would think they would be funded just in terms of their contribution to American society. And yet you look at the endowments of all of the 103 HBCUs. $9
million at Southern University where I went.
Wow. But you look at, even if you include Morehouse and Howard, you know, you're looking at an endowment collectively of about $2 to $3 billion, 1/10 of just Stanford, all the HBCUs. So you're absolutely right that the solution to it is not the charity of NVIDIA or Google. The solution to it is how about we fund institutions that have produced some of our greatest leaders, not because we're doing it because it's good for African Americans, because it's good for America, because these have produced some of the geniuses of America.
It's good for African Americans.
Yeah,
but it has to be okay to say that.
It's good. I believe we should do things that is good for African Americans, but I'm saying it's on its merits as overproduced talent compared to the funding. But you still need NVIDIA and Google. Why? Because even if you had equality of funding, you have networks of exclusion. These folks, they graduate Stanford, they graduate Harvard, they graduate Yale, where I went, or University of Chicago, and they're not looking at the talent at the HBCUs. NVIDIA going to HBCUs is not charity. It's saying there is talent in these universities that you are not looking at, that you are not funding. Why am I passionate about this? Because the only place Indian Americans were hired after the 1965 Immigration Act, when they came here, Stanford and Harvard didn't hire them. They were hired at HBCUs. And to this day, there are a disproportionate amount of Indian faculty at HBCUs because the HBCUs took a shot on Indian Americans. And so now that the Indian American community is doing well in Silicon Valley, I say, how about we look for the talent at HBCUs? So it's not in lieu of the funding. It is to look for talent everywhere. Part of the challenge.
Yeah.
Now, on your
I just want to stop there because that was a lot. And, you know, like I think that was a solid answer, not just for like the tangible historical reasons that Ro kind of laid out there, but it is true that, and having gone to college in the Silicon Valley Bay Area, like I definitely have seen this. Colleges only go to certain or like certain companies only go to certain schools for recruitment. People who have done business degrees or law degrees know that some of the biggest companies require you to be in those programs, and that's basically your application. You can't just like put in an application normally for a lot of these places. You have to be like in these funnels already. And not only do they like not tell you that or really advertise that in school, you have to like kind of already be in the know, and generally means you come from some sort of privilege. But yeah, you like have to be, for lack of a better term, groomed for these programs from a very young age, and taking all the right AP classes, and then taking all the right classes in college, and then making the right connections and joining the right clubs. And it's a very exclusive process. And you wonder why you get sort of like monoculture thinking in a lot of consulting firms and banks and law firms and tech companies. So it is very interesting how Roe mentioned that there. I'm not so quick to dismiss it. But I am very curious to hear about his like proper capitalism answer here. Sachi, did you have anything before this?
No, I'm ready to listen to what he has to say.
Do you want to go to an HBCU?
Broader question of why should people trust someone saying that they still believe in free enterprise? Look, there are a lot of
Not
people.
free enterprise. Capitalism.
Capitalism. Well, capitalism properly defined, in my view, is free enterprise that works for people who work. Right now, the problem is that the capital class has accumulated all of this wealth, and it's not working for people who just work. So we need a change. Why should capital gains be taxed at less than people who are firefighters or teachers who work for a living? In my view, you should have capital gains and ordinary income be taxed at the same rate. You need to tax all this wealth. Not because I begrudge people who made $1 billion. I mean, it's not punitive.
But if you're going to tax the work, tax the wealth.
You tax the work, you tax the wealth. So that's not.
It's also interesting how, like I said earlier, Roe is, the tech companies are going to spend money against him anyways. Like all of this favor of, oh, let's tax capital as much as we tax wages. We should be taxing capital more. We created like things like IRAs and 401ks and all these accounts supposedly for the working class to be able to have tax incentives and tax benefits for saving money for retirement, which uses the stock market. Cool, fine. Those vehicles exist. The rest of it's just gambling though. And we have a bunch of taxes on gambling. We have a bunch of like ways to do all this. There've just been so many systems made to circumvent the existing laws that we now need to catch up. But then you bump up against the problem that some of these companies, your Kalshis, your Poly Markets, are probably people who have executives in Ro Khanna's district, or other partners or business partners who have business or live in Ro Khanna's district. So that's why he's not going all the way, and that's why he's like kind of going, oh, let's make it equal. Capital is equal. He doesn't want to fight that fight all the way like that, and I think that's just perfectly clear.
No, I 100% agree with that. He's letting those guys know, wow, I'm going to war against you. I also want you to know, like I'm not going to completely hurt your pocketbooks, right? I mean, like it's a. If I'm being honest, I mean it's political speak, but it's nothing really. This is another thing I want to take away really quickly before I forget. Just in terms of chances, I think you said even he gets 2% or something in the primary. He's got the personality of, I don't know what, a library card or something. It's just he's not very interesting, unfortunately, and that's going to cost. I mean, like he's like I said, he's breaking down things in a digestible way. It just doesn't work the way that he's coming across as, in my opinion. Even though he's hitting those other areas of media alternative areas of media that we were talking about, it's a challenge to do that in a interesting, dynamic way, I think. And I think that's something that he kind of lacks.
Yeah, I think you're reading him very well. I've got nothing more to add. I'll continue watching it.
Working. Why did we allow in this country all this wealth to be accumulated and people not be paid a living wage? They're not being paid $25. You work at Amazon. You won the lottery in some ways, right? You're working at $1 trillion company, and you still can't make enough to buy a house or to support your family. You got to rely on food stamps. You got to rely on housing assistance. How is that fair? So the problem is not that we have a capitalist system of free enterprise, which is private property. Like I believe in freedom. I believe if someone wants to start a business, they should be able to start a business. You don't have to go to the government to start a business. You want to do something as an artist, you want to build something, fine. But it has to be fair. And right now, the problem is that people who are working in this system are not getting enough to get support their family, to get a house, to be able to afford their healthcare bills. That's why I believe we need America's next New Deal. Now, when I say this, I understand that the New Deal excluded a lot of the Black South with domestic workers and agriculture workers. So it has to be an inclusive New Deal. But we
They
need
demanded that. The Southern politicians demanded that.
they demanded it. And history. I mean, A. Philip Randolph and Guy Houston were criticizing FDR, saying, no, you got to have the hospitality workers included. You got to have the agriculture workers included. You got to have the domestic workers included. FDR said, no, I can't do it. And then Randolph got FDR to say, well, okay, at least if you're going to industrialize America on weapons, we got to hire black people. And that was the compromise. But Houston and Randolph and Bayard Rustin were very critical of FDR. But that doesn't mean that we throw out the basic principle that FDR was for, which is that the economy has to work for everyone. So it's pretty simple. You tax these billionaires, the economic royalists of our time, and you finally have single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all. You finally have free childcare. You finally do free public college. You give people a $25 living wage. You have a new economic bargain in this country. And if you don't do it, this system is going to break because of what you say. People are just going to say the system isn't working for us.
I think the question for me is, okay, so going back to your district, you say you know these people. You've been trying to do this for 10 years. You're only one person that can do it. How do people know? I think the question I would think if I'm listening to you is, okay, so how do we stop it? How do we regulate it? All these ideas are great. You talk about this New Deal, but what is it actually going to take to make it happen? We understand what the problem is. We understand who holds the wealth. We understand who doesn't. But how do we actually realize the things that you were talking about? What would be the thing with that?
We got to elect bold progressives to the House and the Senate and to the presidency who are actually going to stand not just for platitudes, but for a concrete policy agenda. And to me, that is start with taxing the billionaires, because that's where you're going to get revenue. Start with ending these foreign wars. No wars in Iran. I mean, for the cost of the war in Iran, we could have had free childcare, free college. We'll get into the broader issue of morality. I don't want to say
Right.
I'm for no aid to Israel, but I'm not going to pretend that $3 billion is going to pay for everything else. I think.
Just really quickly, I don't want to. We gotta elect progressives, bold progressives, to the House and Senate and the presidency. I mean, like, we've been waiting for that for how long now? I mean, even with Obama, we thought we're going to get that to the point where there was going to be some sort of, strategy to combat this inequality, and that didn't happen. I don't know. It's hard for me to. I think there was a great question of how to do it, because finally, it's nice to see politicians be confronted with the how, as opposed to what is it. It's how are you going to do it. I don't know. It just felt like platitudes. He was talking about, well, you don't need platitudes, but he was giving us platitudes again.
Platitudey.
He's got the mouse on his little chef's hat right now, just
Pulling the hairs.
I don't know. It was, and that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I feel very much the same way. A lot of folks in chat were saying it. Wanda said, Rose, a typical technocrat. I doubt he will pull very well. He's not the absolute worst, but I think we can do better. And yeah, I think we're kind of saying it. Like, he's Elizabeth Warren without the baggage. I don't know. Like, he's just very, very dull. I mentioned earlier that, like, I'd rather hear Al Gore ASMR. And Etch was having me laughing, saying he'll whisper "man, bear, pig."
But this is also like kind of I feel like, not to sound like Dr. Doom or Mr. Doom, whatever, completely doom scrolling.
I can't wait.
What does it say? Where, I mean, Ro Khan is considered, at least on the national level, in the eyes of even Republicans, he's considered a staunch leader of the progressive movement, even though it's probably not true, but he's considered up there enough where they're going after him. Like, does it say that we're headed in just the same direction for par for the course? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's what I've been feeling. Maybe I'm too much of a pessimist to actually, escape that thought process. But I mean, I think I will say, like, we're seeing younger, kind of Gen Z and also Gen X, people running for Congress, and they're making inroads in that regard. But I'm hoping the bold progressives he's talking about do actually come to fruition.
Yeah. I think he's playing another kind of typical political line. And if I can put my BAM hat on in it for a little bit, this is what you have to do as a Democrat. You can't maybe it's arguable if this was a good idea or not, but Bernie Sanders kind of went in guns blazing towards the Democratic Party both times. And I think that was a good play to the center, but you have to get through a Democratic primary first. And that does involve some of like the soft politics that Bernie Sanders was not particularly good at. Now, bucking the Democratic Party establishment to some extent, I think is going to be a popular method for Democrats to go about things. So it's going to be very funny to see the Democratic primary debate and have anywhere from like 3 to 16 people on stage, and the big Democratic branding and the donkey and everything, and you're going to have like a bunch of like basically pick me Democrats. And I mean that in the nicest way and meanest way possible about all of them. And they're going to say, oh, well, I'm not like the other Democrats. You see, oh no, I'm much different from the other Democrats. Oh, you'll never find another Democrat like me again. Like, that's just prepare ourselves mentally, because that's what we're going to encounter ultimately. Every Democrat's going to try to differentiate themselves, but they ultimately can't go guns blazing against the party, because as much as those of us on the left would love that, and as much as the center will love that, the party will not allow that fundamentally. So I think that's a reason why AOC has been more moderate in her time in the House, and whether that's like a good decision or not, I think that's kind of the reason why, is that you ultimately have to make friends with the party in power and the people in power within that party in order to gain more power within that party. Well, I will continue.
We need to have no aid to Israel on moral reasons, but the no wars would pay for a lot of this, and then you start to get votes. I mean, I don't understand why, if we take the House of Representatives, we wouldn't have a vote on Medicare for all, on free childcare, on free public college. Start to have votes and actually run on a progressive agenda.
Well, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said he wouldn't vote for Medicare for all.
No, I respectfully disagree with him. I'm in the Congress. I understand the role. I believe once we take back the House, we need to have votes on Medicare for all. We need to have votes on free childcare. We need to build, and people, they come on here, they say, we need a bold agenda. We need a transformational agenda, and calling for boldness without the specifics is just an exercise in branding.
Yeah,
I have no interest in just branding. I have no interest in messaging. I want the substance. I want the freedom budget that A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, and Dr. King fought for. That's not, people say, oh, this is white populism, prairie populism. No, actually, it came from the Black freedom struggle. The most progressive policies came out of that freedom budget. Look at what they wanted. They wanted free healthcare for everyone, single payer. They wanted a jobs program, a federal jobs program with good wages. They were against militarism. They were against the Vietnam War and the defense budgets. Reverend Jackson ran on a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Why has that never happened? And so you get all these politicians, they're saying, I want transformation. Are you going to be for the freedom budget? Are you going to be for those principles?
Let me ask you this too. You believe in AI.
He's not giving us the beef. I would like to see more than just like, if you believe so much in staunchly in these policies and your House leader is not willing to accept them, you said then he should resign. He should immediately just step down, right? It's more than just a matter of disagreement. It's just Hakeem Jeffries is not in a position to be of leadership. There are people who are saying that who are kind of tiptoeing the line, but also there are some candidates currently who are actually saying, yeah, he does not deserve to be in leadership. And I think it's about high time somebody like Ro Khanna step up to the plate and say, yeah, we shouldn't have leaders like that at all whatsoever.
Yeah, I wonder if that'd be a great follow-up question to hear. Having not seen this, I'm not sure if it'll be asked or not. But yeah, it was a very soft sort of, we should have, it was basically Ro Khanna's idea was Brianna Joy Gray's idea from 2021 or 2022. It was force the vote, like, have floor votes on Medicare for all. But it would have been much better if he had actually gone through that process of, okay, we should talk about Medicare for all and we should make that a priority as the Democratic Party. But what happens with the Democrats who aren't going to approve that? What happens with the Republicans who obviously, like, I don't care what happens, blue wave or whatever in November, it's Donald Trump would have to sign it and he's not going to anyways. So there's still limits on what can be done. But talk about your method for taking it to the people, because you don't have to tiptoe around the Republicans. The Republicans should be a piñata for any Democrat running for office, especially because you're running in the Democratic primary. So, say that, you're going to pull a Bernie Sanders, and like every Democrat should start to go to their districts and like give concrete examples of how the oligarchy is affecting their lives, or how Trump has made groceries more expensive or more dangerous or more dangerous. Actually pounding the pavement and using whatever bully pulpit they get from the midterm elections, which they're widely believed to get, and put pressure on not just the Republican Party, but anyone who moves against this bold progressive agenda that he keeps talking about, but not really giving many details to. And I'm getting very sick of his long stories and like his waxing poetic about things. I know he's on a podcast, so he's gonna do some pieces like that, but I think Pinkerbell, you also said earlier, it was something about like tell someone who's working in an Amazon like warehouse if that's like a beautiful, wonderful job, if like that's a job they really want. Because Rokana was saying something about how Amazon, if you're working for one of the most wealthy companies in the world, then you should be able to afford a home. Yeah, he's missing a lot of opportunities to talk about workers' rights, which is a big issue in Silicon Valley that is just not really addressed, not just from the like white collar rank and file employees you have, but the people who work in warehouses, the people who work or used to work in content moderation, these sort of more thankless behind the scenes jobs that are slowly being automated away. They're actually on the front lines of being automated away. So it's very weak. I think, he's not running to be a California politician. Maybe running for governor might have been a better move, even though people usually don't go from like house to governor. But I think Rokana would be greater than many of the options we have right now. But talk about labor issues in California and use that to build outwards, because if you're going to be like the big tech candidate who's like been sounding the alarm for so long, like there's so much to work on with California alone. So yeah, that's my take. I'll continue playing here.
You're a defender of AI.
Well, no, I've been very critical. I've been
regulation. Right?
Regulation, but also, yeah, I mean, I've been I just had a town hall in Vegas where we were for the workers over AI. So I have said, have a pause on the data centers.
Okay.
I have said no data centers in residential communities or farmland.
Okay.
I have said that you tax the AI and tax the robots because they shouldn't be taking jobs. I've gotten in a disagreement with governor in my state and governors in other states saying that trucks should have truck drivers and being for Teamsters over Tesla. That's been vetoed twice in this state. I mean, we need to be standing and protecting work in this country.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you believe based off of what you just said, you believe in the expansion of AI and data centers if there is some sort of regulation or communities vote to include them within their community.
I am for them not being shoved down the throats of communities, so communities can say no. But regardless, I'm for a ban on them in residential communities and farmland. There's plenty of space in this country. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of deindustrialized places and industrial sites. We don't need to put them in residential communities, taking people's water, driving up electricity costs. Now, if a community is fine with it and it's away from the residential community where it's not going to affect the water or prices, then they should have the right to say that. But there got to be terms of agreement. Where are these tech companies? Are they investing in the schools? Are they investing in the communities? Are they investing in job creation? They say, oh, we created a data center, created jobs. Great. But what else are you doing? And so it's got to be a reciprocal agreement. And I know what problem people have right now is that they see all the wealth piling up in the hands of folks in my district. And these data centers are they're taking the water, they're taking the land, and the communities aren't benefiting. And many times these governors have fast-tracked it to just shove them down the throats of communities.
Another thing that people see is that no one that seems to be pro-AI can make a compelling case about how it increases human productivity and actually helps people. It seems as if what's happening is two things. Number one, an economic Ponzi scheme at the top of our economy between these companies, Alphabet, well, like whatever you want to name, right? To where they're working with each other. And that's not enriching people, right? There are actually almost two economies, one which is failing and the other one which is based upon this almost just increasingly speculative bubble that is bound to burst, right? So that's a economic playground that you can't play in, should I say. And then even if it worked, what you would get would be like just almost dystopian levels of automation that would cost you your job. So people are like, why? Like what's the point? Like, okay, so I'm already working for a wage that my government refuses to guarantee. They won't go up on the minimum wage because that hurts the capitalist class too much. And my promise is a data center that makes my life worse in service of automation for my job that will then render me worthless in this capitalist society. So the whole question would be,
I think Van's doing a better job explaining this than Khanna is, like, in a way that, like, he's presenting his platform for him. He's almost kind of saying what Ro should be saying in this regard.
And I listened to other parts of this podcast because I have become a lot more of a higher learning head over the past couple of months. And first of all, this is a funny way I've paused Van here. Second of all, Van took a lot of shrooms before this interview. All right, so like Khanna's campaign is getting circles run around it by, you know, good old California brain innovation. What can I say? Like, it's just wild. Here's the quote here, because like he kind of started to get back to like a workers' rights argument in there by talking about Teamsters over Tesla and things like that. But he's never really willing to go that extra step here. And I think thankfully Van is pushing back. Like AI is either, you know, to this Amazon warehouse point, this is where I was going to tie it all back together. So I'm like, I'm doing shrooms. But the people who work in Amazon warehouses, they are basically doing work to train AI to replace their jobs. The people who are driving Amazon delivery vehicles are doing work so that Amazon can like ultimately replace their jobs. Amazon just announced that drone delivery is rolling out to like hundreds of cities now. So like we are just already through the looking glass on that. So I think what Van is asking here is, at what point does AI benefit to society? Do we go all the way back to, I mentioned Andrew Yang a lot here, but like, do we already go back to like some sort of freedom dividend that we get from the profits of AI that's handed out like a universal basic income to Americans because of all of this? Because it's already is causing a lot of job displacement and will continue to, in the best case scenario of this technology. Khanna is a hell of a technocrat, but I just don't know if he even has an answer for this stuff.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is, like, getting back to the platitudes that you were talking about, like things like pausing data centers or whatever is not going to be a solution. You got to strike at the foundation of these things that are already been built up. And if you take out that foundation and eliminate these data centers, for example, then you're kind of getting somewhere. But again, like you said, he's not the best technocrat.
Yeah, it's like I'll
be right back, by the way.
Go ahead. Yeah. It's good, I think, that Ro is running, because like, you know, this campaign does need some technocratic issues, but if you're going to be the technocrat, you're not going to be like the big, you know, boisterous sort of person, then don't be afraid to go into the details. And Ro, and it's very clear, like we have a very receptive, smart audience. He's not going to the details. He's avoiding a lot of details. And when you're on a podcast on the left, that is probably your best opportunity to make a policy argument, and not get railroaded by bad faith centrist or right-wing actors. So, you know, these are practice runs for someone who's doing a campaign, but it's not inspiring. For late night viewing, for some folks, this might be helping people get to sleep, and so I'm happy to provide that service, I guess.
The fucking point in the first place, like why? Like, why would anybody be pro AI?
Well, you're right. I mean, I am. That's why I've said our first priority should be to defend the jobs. That's why we should have regulations saying trucks should have truck drivers, that employees should have bargaining about how the technology is used. Now, if the technology is used to enhance medicine or workers, can we use AI to help discover some cure for cancers? Sure, for rare diseases. Do I use ChatGPT sometimes? Because you may ask me a question on HBCUs, and I was like, I forgot. Right? I've been thinking to myself, well, what is the total endowment? Is it $2 billion or $4 billion? Probably when I go out, I'll put it in ChatGPT, I'll get an answer. Fine. but it's not eliminating my job. And the reason that AI is being eliminating jobs is who controls the AI. That's the question. Right now, the control of AI is in the hands of these tech billionaires, and they're out there telling us what they want to do. We're not guessing. They're saying we want 30, 40% unemployment. And what I'm saying is that the decisions of AI needs to be democratic. It should be the worker saying, okay, you want to do AI? Well, you're not going to be able to replace workers with it. You want to do technology that's going to make our life easier? Fine. But we get more free hours. We get a share in the profits. And you better not be laying off anyone. And that needs to be regulation. But I think that you need people who are going to be willing to stand up to these tech billionaires who understand the technology and are going to say, but we're on the side of the workers. And that's, my argument of what I've been doing in Silicon Valley. They ran someone against me. They put up $1 million and ran someone against me because they called to tax them and because I'm not seen as friendly towards AI. And it's not that I'm a anti-technology. I just want to make sure that the technology is benefiting workers and families and not benefiting the capital class.
Broad question. And because I have to ask you this and then we can move off this because we could do the capitalism thing. I'm in a mode right now. We can do the capitalism thing.
Are you a democratic socialist or no?
Yeah,
you are.
Yeah, I'm almost past that. At this point, I cannot see any reason for anyone to espouse for this late stage capitalism that we're in right now.
But let me ask you this: by democratic socialism, do you mean social democracy, or do you mean, which is basically people can still have businesses, they can still have private enterprise, but we have a strong social safety net of healthcare, childcare, public education, or do you really mean that we collectively should own all of the means of production in the country?
I'm the former.
So the former. So I'll tell you one thing. I actually think that question is bullshit.
Okay.
and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So 2 reasons. So
again, this is why I had to do the higher learning version of it, because I don't think there's any other show on the left that's going to just say, I think your question and your framing is bullshit to a presidential candidate. Again, watch the Gavin Newsom interview. That is, Gavin Newsom's not going to love that at all. Horrifying, just absolutely horrifying. But yeah, I love that Narwhal by Nature also caught it earlier by saying, oh, I'm past it. Speaking of whether or not he's a democratic socialist, I've certainly felt that. But yeah, I think this is amazing. HBX. I had no idea Roe was victimized by the data center elites. Oh, so poor Roe.
Let's start, just so we don't give people too much, let's just nibble at dignity.
Yeah.
Since dignity is impossible. Let's nibble at dignity. Let's say healthcare, education, housing, and hunger. Yeah. Let's just say those things.
Okay.
Right. Let's just nibble at it, because I think most Americans could agree on that. As far as your life not being extracted for the wealth of 1,000 people in the country, It doesn't seem like we can get to that right now.
Yeah.
And the reason why it doesn't seem like we could get to that, I mean this with affection, is because it seems like you guys are them. So if you are in office and you're calling yourself a capitalist, well, then you, by definition, align with the capitalist class. And there is only certain ways to control a wolf. Like a wolf hunts, a wolf eats, a wolf gets blood on its fangs.
Yeah.
And so you can try to make a wolf sort of look for different prey or try to fill it or but in the nature of the system that we're in right now is to extract wealth and dignity out of people and leave them scrounging around for their dignity in other places. What I would want in a perfect world, and I understand this, would be there to be humanist, like actual candidates that think, okay, I'd fight the capitalist class because I care more about a hungry child than I do about free enterprise. That we're not going to always lead when we have these conversations about what's good for business, because what's good for business is good for us. That's obviously a lie. That's ahistorical. That's a lie. Now, what I would say is there was a time when that was true, where productivity, living standards, all of those things were increased. But now we're looking at that actually going backwards. The life expectancy changing, infant mortality changing, health declining. We're getting stupider, right? We're less educated than we've ever been. Almost everything that has to do with our personal dignity, late stage capitalism is like robbing us of that, but our politicians are still avowed capitalists. It seems like there's nobody actually advocating for us.
Well, I hear a lot of that. First of all, I'm not for the capitalist system that is there today, and I'm saying that when you look at a free enterprise system,
Go off, King.
I hear a lot of that. That's my favorite thing. That's my favorite. That's the what is it? That's the oh wow, man, that's crazy. That's what Rokan is saying. He's like, wow, I hear you.
Damn, that's brazy.
I have to have an answer now. Oh shit, here I go. Let me repeat what I just said. No, like it's refreshing actually to see them like again. I want you to explain this, like actually break this down for me. So, that was hilarious.
Yeah, you missed earlier when Roe was asking Van if he was a social democrat or a democratic socialist, and whether he believed that that there should be private businesses or whether he believed that there should be like a collective. And he first of all, Van said, "Oh, I'm way past that. Like I'm way past democratic socialists at this point." And then secondly, he said, "I actually think the way you frame that question is bullshit," directly to Rokana. And so I'm just like, there's no other show on the left that's gonna like get these politicians and grill them the way that Van and Rachel are doing, and so I love it very much.
That reminds me.
Also,
Actually,
good to see you, Kat.
Of this video I saw. I think somebody was talking to a Trump supporter or something. It's like, are you a socialist? Or because he said something about like that's not exactly like socialism. And he's like, are you a socialist? Like, actually, no, I'm pretty anti-social.
I saw that somewhere like Comedy Central.
It's just I don't know, same energy. Anyways,
like Van said, we're getting dumber.
Hear a lot of that. First of all, I'm not for the capitalist system that is there today, and I'm saying that when you look at a free enterprise system, it needs to have spheres that are totally apart from it. Mm-hmm. Healthcare is one of those areas. This is why I'm for Medicare for all. I think we got to get rid of the profit system when it comes to people's health. So you shouldn't have people's cancer, people's heart disease commodified and having people making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars for insurance executives. We should have healthcare as a human right, and that should be outside the system of capitalism. When it comes to making sure that people have education, that should be outside this system of capitalism for public colleges. So it's a mixed economy. But what I fundamentally believe is actually that would long-term be good for America's economy and economic growth. It just won't be great for the small capital class.
Right.
And it would have more broad-based economic prosperity.
Okay, but like the thing he's describing, socialized roads or socialized, schools or whatever is the bare minimum. And just to tell you, like, the roads suck in blue and red states. There's potholes on highways and alleys and other streets. There's
the in the nation's capital for perspective. They suck in DC awfully. They suck right outside Rokana's front door. It's terrible.
Oh, I will say this: Silicon Valley got some smooth ass roads though. They keep it nice and paved up in Rokana's district, but his office in DC is probably terrible. But yeah, he's just describing the system we already have, and he's not even talking about improving these systems. Like, I don't think that energy should be, private, or I think we should have like more public-private options. I think there should just be ways we look at our grid, these oil companies, because there is definitely, almost certainly, price gouging in a lot of these cases. There's, I think of all the California utilities like Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, or Southern California Edison, which keep, not updating their infrastructure and creating massive wildfires that destroy billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of property and displace thousands of people. like we should have more ownership over that. We should have more ownership over these things that are utilities that we all use. Khanna is a technocrat with no imagination. And yeah, thanks Sachi for like helping me sort of like get this opinion out here, because I think I'm going to do one of these interviews for like every single candidate who's like about to jump and go in, so I can like kind of get a sense of them, especially in podcast form, because I think it's very helpful. I'm getting some vocabulary for why Khanna is just very sus to me.
And we had that kind of a capitalistic system we were moving towards it in the 1950s and 1960s, not for everyone. Obviously, there was racial segregation and there was discrimination against immigrants, but we should have that kind of a broad-based enterprise system where certain things are beyond the profit motive.
One last question for me on AI. If the people who created AI and control AI, the goal for them was to have productivity that's cheaper and faster, then how is it that we're going to get them to now use this tool for the complete opposite thing that they never intended to do? Doesn't it feel impossible?
Well, it's impossible if we don't regulate it and we don't give workers control over it, and we don't have the right tax.
Going along again with what he was saying, it's like you said to an extent, but it's also just everything that he's saying now comes across as, let's get there, but let's not get too carried away with it, guys. It's almost like it feels like it's like they're in a gym class or something. It's let's not go there yet. We're at level 2. We can't get to level 4 quite yet. We'll take it down a notch. It's like, all right. I mean, like, so you're giving us nothing. So just admit that you don't have anything innovative and just move on.
Yeah, George W. Bush was like referred to some of his policy around immigration, which, laid down a lot of the framework for ICE and the way Border Patrol acts on the southern border today, and did through the Obama administration and Biden administrations as well. But he called that compassionate conservatism. And that's kind of what Khanna is talking about, like compassionate capitalism. Like it's, I don't think he's talked about homelessness like at all.
No.
In this. I don't think he's talked about housing in general, because one effective part of capitalism is land ownership and the commodification of housing, and the idea of owning houses or owning property in order to get into the middle class, in order to survive for retirement, when not every American can own every house in this system, and it's not getting any or own like even one house, let alone anything in the system, and it's not getting any easier. And climate change is destroying all the houses. Like there's just so many issues that Khanna is just missing here. And it goes to like a lack of, it's careful politics. I don't think he wants to tie himself to anything that's too radical too early, which is what Gavin Newsom's doing. And that's the insult I mean it to be.
Policy, right? So one thing we should do is tax AI, tax robots. Right now, you want to hire someone, you bring someone on here, you got to pay their healthcare insurance and you got to pay their payroll tax. But if you say, no, I just want ChatGPT to do it, you don't have to pay a tax on bringing on a chatbot. So I say tax that chatbot so that you actually put a human being on the level. But one of the things we went on a bipartisan delegation to see the Pope. He has I'm of Hindu faith. He's Catholic, but it doesn't matter what your religion is. He has written the most comprehensive humanistic policy.
I hate to be that guy. This is not a thing I feel. But whoever's producing the show and has the camera stuck on Rachel, like, needs to sleep at the wheel. Also, disqualified, buddy. I'm sorry. You're not even a Catholic. Catholic is kind of a hard sell in America. You're Hindu? I'm sorry, man. That's a wrap. I have no prejudice. This country does.
1 second. I have to see. Yeah. I mean, look at Vivek. I mean, I hate to use the Republicans as an example, but
look at Vivek. Look at Usha. Look at what they say about JD Vance's kids.
Yeah. Good luck with that, Ro. I mean, honestly, I mean, even the Pope himself right now is not even in high standing with that side of the aisle. So, I mean, if you're trying to get bipartisan going, I mean,
Policy on AI of any world leader. I mean, our president doesn't read or write, so it's not.
Sorry, I accidentally pressed the play button on my headphones. Didn't mean to cut
no
you
worries.
off.
No, that was my final point. Just yeah.
Vivek told people to their face to get their money up recently. He's wild with it. I know. I'll never forget when he was like, hey, you know what? Actually, H-1B visas are good, and that part of immigration is good, and we should keep that right before the Trump administration. And his Twitter was full of like wild slurs for Indian people for like 3 days from Trump people as he was entering that administration. That was probably one of the reasons he was leaving too. And there was a lot of Elon Musk's people too. And like Elon Musk was goading those people on. And he would know a lot about H-1B visas considering his companies, but it's very common practice for all tech companies to do that. But just to continue.
Faith. He's Catholic, but it doesn't matter what your religion is. He has written the most comprehensive humanistic policy on AI of any world leader. I mean, our president doesn't read or write, so it's not the American president, but the Pope has. And he talks about your exact point. He says we cannot allow efficiency to be the North Star of humanity. And right now, what the AI companies, it's all about efficiency. How do we eliminate these jobs? How do we maximize our profit? No, we need a different mindset. How does the tools of technology, AI, solve problems like cancer and medical research? How does it help workers become more productive? And this is the lesson of the Industrial Revolution. In the beginning 60 years of the Industrial Revolution, it was hurting workers. They made conditions worse because the whole goal was eliminate workers. And then they had progressive reforms. And they said, no, what we need to do is unions. We need to make sure we're not anti-technology. We just need to make sure that the workers are benefiting from this, having less hours, having overtime pay, having safer worker conditions. And so what we need to do is have a pro-worker AI, a pro-worker use of this technology. Ultimately, that's not you can't blame, in my view, just the technology. You got to blame the sources of power.
Sure.
And the power right now is in the capital class.
So let's move off of this. Now, let me ask you a question directly. Are you woke? Would you describe yourself as woke?
Yes.
Okay. What does woke mean to Khanna?
Woke means understanding American history with a lens of what has happened to people who are black or brown in America.
Gay,
marginalized,
trans.
So when I say, when I learned history in 10th grade, my favorite teacher, Mr. Longo, and I learned about the New Deal. I did not learn that the New Deal excluded people who were agricultural workers or domestic workers. Not because my teacher was racist, not because my teacher wasn't trying to do a good job, because that's not the history I learned. I became woke when I recognized that the history.
New sound drop just dropped. I became woke.
I was awoken. Oh my god. The best part of the interview so far. That was your response to a curveball. That was a perfect curveball to be like, all right, I'm just gonna lob it in there. That's a grenade he just threw into there. Oh
my god. Sachin, you want to place your bet? I famously bet Jank that John Hickenlooper wouldn't crack, that he would make it over 3% in the polls in I think it was the 2020 race. And by the time he dropped out, Fox News had him at the highest 2%. So I owe Jank $20. That was fair and square. That was the only betting that happened in the studio before Polymarket happened. But I'm willing to bet that Khanna doesn't crack above 7%. And that's very generous. I think he has a head start.
I don't think he's going to
have that going for him.
I don't think he's going to crack 5, to be honest with you. Bob, yeah.
I'm willing to shake on it.
especially for moderators, like for all the candidates, was woke one crazy? You know, like they're gonna have to go into this answer because of AOC on stage, and if he says something anything remotely close to this, it's game over.
Raise your hand if you think woke one was crazy, and they do one of those like wide shots, and then like different politicians. I remember, I think it was Ron DeSantis who was asked a question during a Republican debate about whether or not Donald Trump won the election or not, or like whether or not they would support Donald Trump. And then before he raised his hand, he looked at everyone else left and right who raised their hand and then raised his hand.
I remember that. Oh, God.
That was classic. Okay.
You'll see somebody just go.
I think I shouted "bitch made" on stream right after that.
Oh, gosh.
I had been taught was not the complete picture.
I'm sorry. One more again.
Excluded people who were agricultural workers or domestic workers, not because my teacher was racist, not because my teacher wasn't trying to do a good job, because that's not the history I learned. I became woke when I recognized that the history I had been taught was not the complete picture. I woke up to the fuller picture. That's what I think woke means. It's to have your eyes opened to your blind spots of the stories that we've been told, and to understand voices that you may not have accounted for.
Now, give me a criticism of that endeavor that you witnessed either socially or culturally, because
oh, this is a roller coaster, man.
Van is absolutely locked in. He is
I literally I can't tell if the shrooms are helping or not.
Oh, I think they're helping him. I
completely agree with you.
Honestly, he seems very locked in.
I'll be right back.
You. The thing that connects me, even more so, because Rachel's from Dallas, I'm from Louisiana. The thing that connects me to that is the amount of knowledge that I've put in my head. And I've seen, just from sea to shining sea, marginalized groups, minority groups, immigrant groups, all come together and bind their cultures together to establish them as citizens in this country. And a lot of people don't tell those stories because the dominating narrative keeps those people in almost perpetual servitude in America. But if you know that some of these things were intentional, then you understand how people have tried to overcome them. Now, we've tried to do that. For you, has there been any overreach in that in the last 10 or 15 years that lends people to be able to weaponize that word as something negative?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that, if defund the police, in my view, was an overreach in that. Do I believe that there is racial profiling in police departments? Yes. Do I believe that there's police brutality? Yes. Do I believe we need to understand that what's happening with ICE today and the brutality we're seeing as immigrants is something that Black Americans have faced for generations because of law enforcement used against them? Yes. Does that mean that we don't need police? No, that doesn't mean that. We still need police. So one can look at things that, in my view, went too far.
He's not an abolish ICE candidate. I don't think it did. Has he called for abolishing ICE?
I don't think so. I don't think he would. Like, California being a border state, I think that's like a tougher sell for him. I think the argument should be made, but it's very clear Ro Khanna is not going to rock the boat here. I am still piecing together my thoughts on the whole woke 1, woke 2 discourse, and like I'm thinking of looping it into the Graham Plattner video over again, and then, oh wow, now this idea is getting longer, yay. But defund the police, or like abolish the police, was something that was barely even said. It was mostly just said at like protest. Defund the police kind of became a thing, and what we saw around the country was that some departments added more money to their police. Some departments, reallocated that money to other things to try to prevent crime. Overall in the country, crime and violent crime is going down. So, a lot of these things have worked. I think it's another one of those cases where I don't trust Ro Khanna, similarly don't trust AOC just because of the way they're folding on this and not really like kind of taking the narrative. They don't need to like defend woke, but this is just all accepting the framing of how Republicans have called woke, and they've hated woke the whole time because it honestly was their version of their version of DEI before they were using DEI as a phrase. So not only is Ro Khanna using this framing here, but he's not able to spin it into something like, you know, you could take a look at different cities. I think Minneapolis did this, but you know, New York is doing this as well, where they're keeping the levels of police roughly the same. They're working on, you know, like retaining police officers. Sure, you're gonna have to say that you're running for president of the United States of America, but he can also say that other money is being, you know, diverted and resources are being spent to address what causes crime. This would be a great time to talk about plans for housing, or you know, the unhoused in general, or making sure that people are actually able to build wealth and have stable wages. He mentions this, like the wages and wealth thing here or there, but Bernie Sanders is kind of impossible to get off message at the point where he's kind of parodied. He's always talking about, there's that Saturday Night Live thing where he's like, the top 10% of the top 1% of the, but you know, he was always talking about that. You always knew Bernie's message, and he still more or less has a similar message on any venue he goes on to this day, and has for a long time. So there's that consistency. Ro Khanna doesn't have that. I mean, even Elizabeth Warren, I forget what it was because it was very wonky, but you kind of knew that she was able to point to certain policies. She was able to point to things like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that actually had meat to them. Like someone said earlier, like there's just no meat here. There's no beef.
I think he's also just doesn't recognize political climate. Or not even the political climate. Here's something that frustrates me. And speaking back to what we were talking about, where Republicans were, you know, labeling woke as this and this and that, right? It's but towing the line and finding this medium ground. You're never going to find medium ground with those kind of people in the first place. So trying to even appeal to them or even trying to cross base with them is kind of pointless. I think what's even more concerning too is, I guess if that's the right word, or just, you know, something that he's ignoring, is just the pulse of the people and why these protests were happening and what they were saying at these protests. And more so, like, it's just getting about, like, that's the issue with politicians, I think, right now, especially on the Democratic side. They don't have a pulse of the people and what they're actually feeling, as opposed to, what do I have to say to appeal to them? It's like, actually, just, it's easier to just actually understand what's going on in front of you, what your eyes see, as opposed to what you're trying to think is going to appeal to somebody, you know? So I don't know. That was maybe a word salad of just saying that Ro Khanna really is not connected to he's not connected to the streets at all. I mean, like, you have to be connected to the streets in that regard and understand what's actually going on the ground. And he has no ground game, honestly.
I 100% agree with you. And what you said made sense. It's a issue with Democrats that, and it's been a complaint, a long time complaint, that I've experienced door knocking, not even for Democrats, just in general, but like, you know, they only come around election day, but they're not around to, you know, fill potholes and do things like that. There's so much better messaging that can be done here. Bro does not seem like the person to do it. Narwhal by Nature saying universal healthcare would be cheaper and more effective than hiring and training more social workers. At saying, like, yeah, like more mental health professionals. I think kind of in response to like how we're reusing or like, you know, preventing crime. And yeah, like you need to do with all the money you save by just cutting down on the admin of having 10, 20, 50 different health insurance companies, and all these other different systems, and just cutting out all of those issues, we could actually have enough like home care providers for all of the boomers who are retiring and, you know, stressing home care systems. And, you know, we could actually start to, you know, recruit more doctors and train more doctors. Like there's so much more that could be going on, but it's the lack of imagination that really gets me with Ro Khanna here, I think.
Far, but not reject the idea of being awake to the realities of historical injustice. immigration, maybe in other areas. You can believe that we need secure borders. You can believe that we need secure borders, but still be horrified with what's happening to folks who are undocumented, who are being killed, like Lorenzo Salgado, 52-year-old father of 3 young kids shot to death for no reason, even though he was a construction worker being in this country. So I think that the problem with this is we can say that there are specific policies where progressive ideas may have gone too far. We don't have to reject the concept of understanding that race matters and understanding that there are blind spots about race. And the reason we shouldn't back away from that is if we back away from that, we're giving a permission structure to what Donald Trump and others want, which is to erase Black history, to erase immigrant history, to say, let's just whitewash all of this and tell a lie about our country.
That's a great answer.
I'm going to attack you on defund the police in a second.
Well, I agree more with.
I think he should have started with the end answer because he kind of got to the thing that I was thinking about of like, this is when you, what is it? Like, you don't accept the framing of the right wing because that's how they, attack these sort of programs. The rest of it was just so much equivocating. Pinkerbell saying, I've been in that beat for a long time. We don't need 15 separate executive teams sponging up money and denying claims. Medicare for All as a program will still need workers to do the admin work. Yeah, like it's, you will need workers in the sense of like, you're going to be managing a really big insurance company in a lot of different states, essentially. And maybe you'll have like individual state versions of this. I'm not sure how it will work, but you will still need a lot of people to manage those systems. But there's so much waste, exactly like you're saying, a lot of in these boards, and like by having a bunch of these different systems, and the fact that time is wasted because of different systems not talking to each other. I remember, I'll be really quick with this, but when I was going to college in Northern California, I technically still had the same insurance company, but there's technically 2 different insurance companies, Northern California version of Kaiser Permanente and the Southern California version. And because of that, I had to like re-sign up and get into a new system just because I was going from Southern to Northern California. And that was just like, extra time and extra delay. And for someone who's like needing to seek care, being stuck on phone trees and being told like you don't have coverage, you need to like kind of re-sign up in this weird way just to appear in the system and get in the door. So you're spending hours on the phone and you're still not even closer to actually getting the care you need. Yeah, like everyone has these stories and it's full of waste. It's terrible. I agree here. I'll keep playing it
with you with what you're saying, but
Daddy,
I do. If Democrats, because he had to ask the question about defunding the police and your opinion on it, and obviously there's mixed messaging within the party as far as defunding, not defunding. You talked about policy, which is the part, or like not abandoning what the issue is, which is what I agree with. But it seems like there's this disconnect. I brought up Hakeem Jeffries. He's like, doesn't believe in Medicare for all. He's like, that's not the issue that he's behind or he's pushing forward. If Democrats do retake Congress in the fall, what is the first bill that you feel like is worth fighting for or for passing? Because it does seem like, I mean, he would be the leader. You're not on the same page. And I believe you said something along the lines of most Democrats are for this.
Yeah.
So what would be the thing that you would push forward if there is this disconnect?
Well, look, I'm going to fight with everything I have to get to the caucus to the point where we have votes on Medicare for all and we have hearings on Medicare for all. So I'm not giving up on that. But I would say right out of the gate, we should restore the Medicaid funding. We should increase the taxes on the very wealthy to restore the funding of Medicaid, which is crippling rural hospitals, taking away funding from working class and poor Americans. We should increase the living wage. I believe it's got to go up to $25 an hour by 2032. And there's a bill Anna Lilia has to do that, but push at least to get that wage increased. Mm-hmm. We should get paid family leave. I mean, we still don't have paid family leave in this country. So those are a few things we should do right away. One of the things I hate in the political conversation is they say, well, are you going to hold the Trump administration accountable, or are you going to pass an agenda to improve the lives of the country? Why can't we do both? Why can't we subpoena the people who doged this nation and hold the ICE officers who are killing Americans and undocumented immigrants accountable, and hold the corruption accountable, and have hearings in the Judiciary Committee and Oversight Committee, and every day pass an agenda of what we're going to do to help the American people? It's not either or. In fact, the corruption crisis is part of the reason we have an affordability crisis. So we've got to do both. We've got to hold the corruption accountable, and we've got to pass bills every day that we're saying we're going to improve the lives of Americans.
So you described, I think this happens a lot of times when people are talking about particularly defunding the police, because you say that was an overreach. I actually understand what you mean in terms of the way that sounds to a lot of Americans. But I think underneath what happened is why it feels like an overreach, because you described abolishing the police. So like when you say defund the police, what people then think is, okay, no police.
Van's my guy. That was exactly what I pointed out earlier. Hell yes.
Right.
That is not what that is. Right. So like what defunding the police is I'm looking right here now, we have a $3.5 billion police budget in Los Angeles. We have around an $800 million budget for homelessness. Right. So when people say defund the police, what they're talking about is maybe the police don't need tanks, and maybe the police don't need, maybe they can go with a couple of less helicopters or specialized Israeli training or like whatever that is, right? To take some of that money and then either establish things that are directly resulting in public safety. Shout out to Philip McHarris, by the way, who is younger than me, but one of my big homies on this issue. Now, Philip's an abolitionist, so he would say abolish the police, perhaps. But what defunding the police does is it reinvests into a community, right? And when you reinvest into that community, you get better outcomes for that community, and you get less negative outcomes from that community being over-policed. Now, abolishing the police is like Scarlet Witch with the mutants. No more police. Yeah. Right? So I think a lot of times in mainstream political discussions, defunding the police was described as abolishing the police, which is the reason why so many people recoiled from it. So many people said, well, we need the police. Nobody's saying get rid of all the police except for my abolishment people, and they know who they are, right? What people were saying was that these budgets have gone crazy, and at the other end of these budgets, what we see is a police department that is not interested in public safety. They're highly militarized, and they're interested in what seems more like this almost fascistic order, right? And when you run afoul of that, they fucking kill you. And so might we live in a world where we could train or imagine a different modality of public safety that wasn't that? That's defunding. Abolishing is we don't need the police anymore.
Can I just say that too, though, that I think that, and to your point with what, and Van acknowledged it, like what you were saying, is that the term, not even just in political discussions or conversations like this, had a spectrum, and that became a problem. There were people who would say, defund the police, get rid of the police, like just in casually talking. The way you explained it, absolutely right. But the way it went as far as people, whether they were protesting, not everybody, but just some people, it became a term that they just threw out there that had a variety of meanings, which is where the messaging got lost in it all. You're right. That is the terminology of it.
Fact. But this is the reason why. This is the reason why, Comrade Rachel. This is like,
because I'm moving more left.
She's moving left. This is the reason why we would need the Ro Khannas, the Kamala Harrises, and the people like that to make sure that we're not taking a lot of these activists and people that we trust in our communities and letting the right use them as punching bags for saying something that they did not say.
Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, it's not my place in any way to police the language of activists.
Right.
And what I don't want our party.
I'm very glad Van said that, because I've been seeing that a lot, where like they've been letting these activists take the punches for them when, you know, they're the ones prominently running on a platform, actually running to be president or running to whatever political leadership that they are running for. And it's, I think that's an excellent point to make, where you can't let the people actually on the ground be the punching bags for your campaign. It's gotten too much. That's happened far too often.
Van's a man.
Any way to police the language of activists.
Right.
And what I don't want our party to do, which is why I said I am woke and I respect activists, is to punch the activists who are not in office, who don't have a title, who are doing this simply because they care about their community. We shouldn't be punching them to kind of show that, oh, we're reasonable and winning votes. And I have no tolerance for that.
Right.
I have a different role in my view. I got to take any policy that there is and convince people in my district, a majority of my district, that this is common sense policy. So if I use a different and what I would say in my district's view, a precise way of how I talk about it, if I say, look, we need to make sure that police don't have militarized like equipment. We need to make sure that police aren't acting in rogues ways like you see now ICE acting. We
Certainly.
need to make sure that when there is someone who is homeless or
Just really fast, there was a story, I believe, where a cop got in trouble for whistleblowing on the bad cops who were saying terrible things about like the people who are in their custody and the people who are like in their jurisdiction. So it's like, oh, we need to make sure we have good cops. Oh, we need to make sure they like, don't have tanks. They don't abuse their power. He ain't gonna do shit, Dan. He ain't gonna do shit, man. And, it's probably unreasonable to expect the president to do this in 2028 or whatever, but ain't doing shit.
or has a mental health issue, the first interaction may be a community-oriented intervention rather than an escalatory intervention. And in some cases, that may mean that actually you have more police officers of different kinds, or it may mean that you have different specialties. And we're talking about what kind of police force is most just and best for public safety. And if I say it that way, I'm probably going to build more consensus. That doesn't mean that I go and say, well, look at that radical who's out there using a different language, because they may mean what you're saying, but we have different roles. And I think that the obligation of a politician is to try to articulate it in a way that's common sense, but also to understand that what the activists are doing is constructive to fighting for a more just society. And so where I really disagree with some of my colleagues is when they punch the left and they kind of denigrate the left. And they do this either with the Democratic Socialists or the people of the Black Lives Matter. And they almost do that to show that they're reasonable. You can show you're reasonable just by how you talk.
That's the point. Like,
Right.
because I was like, oh, are they right?
Sachi, do you have any thoughts on that? I know you want to get out soon.
It's more, in one ear out the other, just because it's political speak. I mean, he got cornered. Like, it's always interesting how he gets cornered, and he manages to somewhat kind of back himself out of that corner, but it's once again like it's platitudes all over the place. I don't know, but here's the thing: he says that, then he kind of. I mean, I get that from causes that are worth working with Republicans if they're going to actually even talk about it, like the Epstein files things, which he kind of abandoned, by the way. But he'll say things like that and then work with people, across the aisle who are doing just that on a daily basis. Like, it gets to the point where just don't even associate yourselves with those kind of folks in your political body, and then I'm fine with that. But like, again, it's all platitudes, and I don't know. I think that's going on from 5% to 3%.
That was gonna be my last question. Has your opinion of Ro Khanna gotten better or worse as a result of this?
So I'll put it this way, and as a
Oh no.
I should take it there, but I think I'm at least half of me is allowed to take it there. I'm half Indian. I was born in India, and let me just say this: he would not succeed as a politician in India either. So that would be my final line.
What makes you say that? Is it like his lack
Nobody
of
would buy this
style?
BS. Nobody would buy this BS, and they're not in the political climate now. I mean, like, that's the thing, though. Like, I think we're at a point where America is also like, not to go on a tangent now, but America is so far behind in terms of this political body not really, reading the pulse of its nation. Like, I mean, like, we're even kind of further behind than other countries that are supposedly third world. I hate that expression, but like, it's just, and people like Ro Khanna are a major reason why. And I don't know. Yeah, that might be going down by the minute. It's from 3% to like 2.5% right now. It's not good for him. he's if he's going to run, which he is going to because he's got that Thanksgiving announcement. I can't wait to see which farm he decides to go to, and it's like, you see this turkey? Let's roast it up and celebrate in honor of America or some nonsense. Anyways, I'm done.
He's launching. He's gonna launch on X. He's gonna announce on X.
Hey, Elon Musk, do you see this?
It was Ron DeSantis who announced on X, right?
I think so.
Good times. Good times. Sachi, well, I'll finish this out here, but thank you very much for joining me. This was a great and informative time. It was great to chat with you. Folks can find you on the Hell site at Lefty Boston Ball. And
I deactivated my Instagram again, so good luck. Good luck there.
Best of luck to everyone. Team 3 to 5%. No worries. Take care. All right, folks. Let's wrap this up here. I wanted to do. I may do a stream. I need to reconfigure a bunch of different things, but I wanted to do a stream of my re-reviewing my debate with a libertarian or like a Republican type on Trump's first 100 days, because I think that just makes that's just so much to talk about there. But it is late here and I am fast losing stamina, so I think I should just call it soon after this interview ends. But there's about another 10-15 minutes into this, so we can continue playing it here.
Write letters and get people to sign it. That's the point.
The Democratic Socialists or the people of the Black Lives Matter, and they almost do that to show that they're reasonable. You can show you're reasonable just by how you talk. Right?
That's the point. Because I was like, or they write letters and get people to sign it. That's the point. That goes back to the question I was asking you about pushing things forward. If the Democrats do take over Congress in the fall, which we hope they do, pushing things forward. When you say that they're saying things to sound, it's like, who are you saying it for? Who is it for? The right? Is it for the moderate? Is it for the establishment? Rather than what are the things that need to get?
Also, shout out Van's heavy breathing throughout this entire thing. Like, yo, just away from the mic, buddy. Just don't ride it so hot.
Get done in order for the American people to feel better, that they can have better lives in this country. And that's the fear I have when I hear the potential leaders say, I don't want this. Well, if majority of Democrats are saying that they do, then are we going to be able to move these things forward, or are we split as a party? Are we going to write another letter and have other people sign it against, the more progressive side of the left? I don't know. That's this is a fear of mine.
Well, sometimes I think about what our platform should be. I have this radical idea. Someone should just run on, I'm going to do what Democrats want. I'm going to do what Americans want, right? They're telling us pretty clearly. They want to tax the billionaires. They don't want another dollar to Israel. They want an end to this genocide. They want Medicare for all. They want free college. This is not controversial. This is what all the numbers are telling us. And yet somehow we have an ossified party infrastructure that these simple ideas that people want are not getting done. And I think that's why you see the anger. Look, I think the Democrats are going to win the House. I think we've got a great chance of winning the Senate, but we better have our act together.
Right.
Because if we just get in there and are ineffectual, winning does not mean they trust us. They just dislike the other guys, but they do not trust us yet. They want to see what are we going to deliver. And then if they give us the White House, they'll give us 2 years. And if we don't deliver, you're going to see a worse radical right-wing populism in 2030 and 2032.
It's so interesting you say that. Politico had an article that came out, I don't know if it's today or yesterday, about the resistance in what happened with Florida. So maybe it was today, about how they're pushing back. They're not voting for it. That was Trump 1.0. Now in Trump's second term, people don't want you to just be a part of the resistance or you became a star because you're anti-Trump. It's what are you actually going to do for us, which is why the DSA's message is becoming so powerful. I mean, it's populism. It's what happened on the other side years ago.
Yeah. And look, people wanted you to take risks. One of my liberating qualities, because people said, oh, are you going to run for president? I was very blunt. I said, I'm considering it. But I was not supposed to get to Congress. I'm an Indian American guy of Hindu faith. When I was doing an internship after law school, they said, you won't get elected to anything. It was before Barack Obama. And if I run, I know it's an underdog effort, but I'll say what I believe, and I'll let the chips fall where they may. And it's kind of liberating when you don't have the expectations that you're supposed to be in these offices, because you can just let it rip. You can say what you believe. And my view is, okay, if I don't win, I'll make a moral contribution to the country in terms of my ideas. And if it's great, you win. And I just think that we need more of that spirit and I think what burdens the Democratic Party is we're so afraid of losing. We're so afraid of saying something that's going to offend people that, and that's what I think people mean by this authenticity. It's not like, hey, do you know the latest hip hop artist? Like, no, I don't know the latest hip hop artist. Probably. It's, are you willing to stand for something, and are you willing to lose over that?
You know what they call that where I'm from?
What?
They call that being pussy. That's what they call, like, how you mushrooms. They call mushrooms. Like how.
Oh, wow. Wow. Gotta run that back.
Authenticity. It's going to offend people that, and that's what I think people mean by this authenticity. It's not like, hey, do you know the latest hip hop artist? Like, no, I don't know the latest hip hop artist. Probably. It's, are you willing to stand for something, and are you willing to lose over that?
You know what they call that where I'm from?
What?
They call that being pussy. That's what they call, like, how you mushrooms. They call mushrooms. Like how you. It's like, how can you not? That's your job. Like, your job is to take your truth and make it into policy for people's lives. People are begging you to do that, and you're scared to do it. What the fuck is supposed to happen? Like, how can anybody? You know why the DSA is really catching on? Yeah. I'll tell you why the DSA is really catching on. The DSA is really catching on because they're going to places that they know people care and they don't care. They're catching on because they're saying, you know what, to the degree, even within the box a little bit, because I know people to the left of them, but it's like they're going, I don't give a fuck. I don't care.
Yeah.
This is what I'm being told. This is what I see. And this is the truth. And the center of the Democratic Party is lashing them for it. I have criticisms of the American left. Those criticisms are a decentralizing of the Black experience sometimes that I see on the left. Hey guys, I'm at all the meetings, but I'm sorry. We've been saying this for a long time. We said this with Graham Plattner for a long time. Nobody listened, and that's just the reality of it. It's a fact. However, what I also see is not just populism. I see things being common sense that the center of the party will not agree are common sense. Like, I see a critique of capitalism that is common sense that still feels like people can, like, really come to.
Yeah.
I see a critique of our Middle East policy and Israel and all of these things that are common sense to people that people go, wait, whoa, hold on, and the party still can't do it. So in a more broad, robust sense, why do you think the DSA is catching on as an insurgency inside of the party all across the board?
Because people get that the current system is broken, and they get that it's too beholden to money in politics. They get that there's a donor class that has way too much influence on our politics. And they're wondering, why are all these things, Medicare for all, free college, taxing billionaires, stopping aid to Israel, 70-80% of people are supporting it, and yet the vast majority of our leadership are not saying it. What's the disconnect? And so they say, well, obviously the system's not working. You know, I was at the DNC, I gave a speech, and people applauded when I said, the free enterprise system, capitalism isn't working, we need a better system. But then when I would offer specifics, when I would say, and that's why we need to call out the genocide in Gaza, a little uncomfortable. And that's why we need to abolish ICE, a little uncomfortable. Suddenly, only half the room. Someone said, bro, do you have to be that divisive? I said, I'm offering policies that 70-80% of people agree. Right. But you got a old guard or a guard of people with a lot of power and a lot of money. And, the honest truth is, I don't know if this is the best way to win a national election, or
the DSA, you mean?
The being for these policies, right? But you gotta, we've got to try. We've got to try what Zoran did. If you had asked people, it was Zoran's platform of 1%, and he's talking about arresting Benjamin Netanyahu. Mehdi Hassan, a friend of mine, he said, I had Zoran on early on. And he goes and he says, what are you going to do as mayor? He says, I'm going to arrest Netanyahu. And I said, wow, great guy, got no shot in hell to win. I mean, he's a great guy. And Zoran went out and he showed he could win, right? Zoran didn't get there thinking, I am going to be mayor of New York. He got there thinking, this is what I want to do. And if it works out, great. And if not, I've fought for what I believe in. And I just think that what with some of the folks in DSA and folks who are progressive is they're fighting for what they believe in. They're not They're not out there calculating. Now, I have disagreements with them, but my whole point.
Like what?
Like what?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I disagree with their view. I mean, as the platform it comes out of that we should have no military or no funding for the military, and I voted against military budgets again and again.
You realize though that like those that DSA platform is very rarely accepted and fought for by any of the candidates that we see running from as DSA candidates.
Yeah, that's why I've endorsed a lot of DSA candidates, right? I endorsed.
So let's talk about besides that, the DSA. Besides that, in the I guess the political experiment of the DSA that we've seen in places like all over New York, wherever here in Los Angeles, Nithya Raman, all of that stuff. Those candidates and the more mainstream held beliefs of the DSA, what are your main disagreements?
Well, first of all, I've endorsed a lot of these candidates, right? I've endorsed, I supported Malat. I supported Claire Valdez. I supported Francesca Hung in Wisconsin. I supported Zoran. So, a lot of these candidates, even.
So not many disagreements is what you're saying.
I support them on Medicare for All. I support them on zero funding for Israel. I support them on no weapon sales to Israel that are being used to kill civilians. I support them on taxing the billionaires. Where they may probably disagree is I
notice how he says no weapon sales and no offensive weapon sales, but doesn't mention, I'm not sure if he mentions no defensive weapons, which would include Iron Dome, which gives Israel a lot of leeway in what they're doing, not just in Palestine, the West Bank, but now Lebanon and, further in that sphere of influence. Man, this is painful. I also wanted to do the Nithya Raman and Karen Bass debate, speaking of. And yeah, I don't think I have it in me to do it tonight, but tomorrow morning I might wake up and we'll give it a go. Because I'm getting the dust off of my streaming abilities here, so we'll try that. But let's wrap this up. I think there's just a few more minutes left, mercifully.
Still believe in that there's a value in entrepreneurship, innovation, a free enterprise system, and they may have a broader, deeper critique of that. But obviously, I felt comfortable enough not just supporting them. I campaigned for a lot of them. So I view it as I hate the broad label. I look at it as where do they stand policy wise, and do they want to ultimately improve life for working class and middle class Americans, and do they recognize that the system's not working? And I love the insurgency, because our party's problem is not that suddenly like, oh, we're doing too much. Like, it's not like we've passed Medicare for All and the tax on billionaires and we're going to an excess. Our problem is we're static. Like, the change doesn't happen. Where people get in and their wages are still stagnant. They get in and, the wealth inequality is still exploding. I've been in Congress 10 years, and you're right. The wealth inequality has exploded. And my fear for this country is it solvable? Can we actually, we get the presidency, we get the House, we get the Senate, but we're up against these macro forces of capital and billionaires and multinational corporations. Can politics actually change this? That's the fear, because if it can, we're going to see worse in terms of the virulence of an anti-system politics. And so to me, the question isn't like, can we stop the insurgency? It's, can the insurgency wake up our politics to actually act? Look, for the New Deal to happen, it took a world war and a depression. Yeah. Like, is that what it's going to take in America to
we
snap
have a
us
depression every 5 years under capitalism. We get depression. Well, we don't have a depression, but we have
a recession.
We have cataclysm, like 2008, upward transfer of wealth like we hadn't seen before. Yeah. Then again in COVID, and and I know that very soon another one is going to come, like really soon. So you guys are going to have your chance. Last thing I'll ask you about the DSA. What do you make of the fact that the center of the party seems to be fighting harder against the DSA than they ever did against MAGA?
Well, it shows the hypocrisy, because they kept telling us you got to be for blue. The Trump is an existential threat. Then you get Chuck Schumer. Did you see his comments the other day that, well, we may not need Michigan to get to the Senate, the majority? I mean, who says that? So when there have been centrist candidates, I've done my small part to campaign for them. They kept sending me to Dearborn, Michigan for Vice President Harris. And I went like 4 or 5 times to try to get votes for her. And finally, I said to people in the Harris campaign, I said, they don't care what I think about Gaza. They care about what the vice president thinks. But I did my part. A lot of the progressives did our part. And so now that you have progressives winning, you have a group of people who are more concerned about them than they are building a broad majority. And it's just wrong. I mean, it's undermining their fundamental point that Trump and what he's doing poses a threat to the country.
Last question for me. And this kind of just brings it back to the beginning question about whether or not you'll run.
Yeah.
I believe you've said that Democrats who've lost to Trump twice should not define the party's future.
Yeah. They have no expertise because they keep doing the unelectable thing, right? Someone like Ro Khanna, put aside just in a hypothetical. Well, how can a guy from the Bay Area who's an Indian American Hindu and only a House member, how could that person be electable? ChatGPT tells us that we've got to run a white governor from the Midwest who connects with moderate voters, right? This is and they fill the airwaves and they define people who are different as unelectable. And that's their secret because people obviously want to win. You want a team candidate who wins. And what I've said is, first of all, the people who bring transformative change in this country, whether it is FDR who had polio, whether it was a a Jewish socialist like Bernie Sanders, Barack Hussein Obama, they tend not to be conventional. They tend to be out of the mold. And I'm tired.
Or the son of a single mother from Hope, Arkansas.
Yeah. I mean, or Clinton. Lincoln. I mean, they're not the conventional folks. And yet there's this. So what I said is they've lost now twice. I'm not saying I have a recipe for what's electable, but can we stop hearing what your recipe is for what's electable? Because your recipe for what's electable is just a way to cut out people you don't agree with.
When you said that, were you intimating that Vice President Harris shouldn't run again?
No, because Vice President Harris absolutely should have the right to run again and should make her case. Now, if Vice President Harris got on the stage and said, well, I'm the only one who's electable and, someone else is not electable, then I would have an issue with her. But who is Ro Khanna to say that Vice President Harris isn't electable, right? Like that would be equally arrogant. I'm just of the view, like, how about we not try to prejudge what electability is? And how about we stop obsessing about the current poll numbers? You talked about Bill Clinton. Like Bill Clinton was 13 or 14 points down to Bush Sr. after he won the nomination. And now we look at the current poll numbers. Oh, no, someone's 2 points up, 3 points up. Who the hell cares? Just let the process play out. Go with your heart. Go with who you actually think has the right vision for the country, for Congress, for Senate, and stop the obsession on electability, because the person we thought was totally unelectable won twice.
Right.
Have some humility. That's all that's my only point.
Very true.
Ro, I do this game. I gotta let you go, but I do this game where I look at someone. I have this like uncanny skill. We've talked about it on Higher Learn before, where I can look at somebody. We've talked about it on Higher Learn before. You know what I'm about to say?
Yes,
I can look at somebody
about to say.
Non-black, right? That's not black, and I can tell how many times they've said the N-word in their life. Like if you're a non-black person, I can look at them and tell how many times. I can just look at them and tell how many times they said the N-word. Before you got here, I tried this with you. I was like, what's Ro's number at how many N-words? Because I don't know if you listen to hip hop or whatever you got going on and stuff like that. And I couldn't do it. It was almost like, sometimes, I don't know if you follow Star Wars. You don't have to get nervous. I saw the little tick. Like it's like you follow Star Wars. It's like, the Emperor was there right in front of Mace Windu, but the Emperor put this thing on him and Mace couldn't see, neither could Yoda, that the Emperor was right there. I couldn't see your number.
Really?
I couldn't.
Have you met Indian immigrant parents? You think my parents will let me use the N-word?
So I'm asking you now, what's the number?
It's a zero. It's a zero. Ever. The N-word, yeah, because I grew up in I've used the F-word and cursed and stuff, but I grew up with that. that was, that.
You have a zero.
Zero.
Do you know that's like?
No, I don't know if that makes me lose credibility.
No, people
you want a zero.
But I,
I mean, some would say that if somebody says a zero, then it's actually like a 4,000, because that means that
you've
you're
only
trying to
done this with white people.
But that's even different though, because it's
this
sometimes
is why
a different.
It got cloudy for you when you looked at.
Because I couldn't tell.
But I grew up with Indian immigrant parents, right? Like who, it was you had to be.
I will say a thing that Hassan often does is he blames being an immigrant and not growing up in America for certain things that he doesn't know, or certain faux pas that he comes across, and it feels like Ro's doing this exact same thing.
upper, and you had to make good grades, and you had to study, and you had to you had to be polite, and they would have been horrified. I mean,
if they'd have heard you,
believe you.
and they would have heard you rolling down.
Yeah,
the street,
I mean, they would have been just utterly
So
horrified.
you was never fucking with Tupac and never listened.
I mean, I listened to Tupac of like, we got too much money for war, not enough for the poor, or something.
Bro!
There you go.
Bro, look at that.
No N-words.
So this is what we're
You
gonna do.
didn't ask me how many times have I heard the word. You said how many times have I said the word. The other thing is that, look, as a person, even as a person of color, I understood pretty early on that being Indian American is different than being black in America, and I've never pretended to be black.
Right.
I never pretended that my experience, like I have a pretty optimistic view of the country because I grew up Indian American in Bucks County. And yeah, I had times, especially after 9/11, where, you had every time I'd have security screening. But by and large, the country was open to my experiences, and I got to do a lot of things. And that's very different than being Black American. So I was never like, I got to hang and be like that. I'm comfortable in who I am or something. And that's there.
It's the first time he's ever been cloudy.
All right.
He's had a clear number.
Sorry to
Let me help change the subject because we're going to let you go.
You think the
This is
AOC
what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
We did a whiteboard game the last podcast. Pretty popular around here. Some people even copied it. Shall not be named.
shall not be named. Copy that game. We
But-
see you.
You might be running in 2028. It's possible. It's almost rumored that maybe AOC is running. It's also rumored that she's single now. So we decided to help her out and give her what we thought could be a really good partner for her. If she decides, well, just in life, but also if she decides to enter the 2028 race.
Yes.
We have some presidentials. Who would you hate to go up, but hate to see her partnered with that could be your bigger competition? Can you read from there?
Look, I'm a fan of Trevor Noah.
Trevor Noah, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tyler Perry, Ben Affleck, Michael Strahan, James Tallarico, and Dak Prescott.
I'll tell you this.
What's the power couple that would scare you the most?
Trevor Noah, because AOC, the one thing that people don't appreciate about her fully is how intellectual she is. She's really, really smart. She's really prepared. And Trevor Noah, of all that list, he's very, very, like when I listen to Trevor Noah, I learn stuff, right? And so that would be a power couple.
If she got with Trevor Noah, if AOC got with Trevor Noah, you would be like, damn,
that would be a lot. That'd be a lot of horsepower. That'd be, that would be pretty impressive. I don't know, but is Trevor Noah married or something?
Fuck it, bro. Bro, who cares? Fuck it. You're here. Like, fuck it.
You're single. That's a singles list.
You're having fun. Who fucking cares?
Our choice was Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck? Okay.
So do you think that Ben Affleck, because we went with Ben Affleck, do you think, so you put Trevor Noah over Ben Affleck as the power couple?
Yes, by far. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
I do.
Rose saying the electability thing with the white, that don't even matter.
Ben Affleck's like a good actor. Like I watched, Good Will Hunting when he was in Matt Damon. That was like but like Trevor Noah, I learned stuff when I hear him. Like I was like, I would never have thought of that. I couldn't have ever said that the way he does. Trevor Noah also has a really understanding of colonialism. My grandfather, you may remember my grandfather was in jail twice under British colonialism and was part of Gandhi's independence movement. So when I hear Trevor Noah speak, I was like, okay, here's someone who understands the West from a way that someone outside the West speaks.
Good
and
point.
that's
So he'd be good on the campaign trail.
Funny, introduce her and the whole deal.
Now, The Rock would probably just win the campaign for you, right? I don't know.
See?
It's, I don't know. It's like, he's thought of running too, hasn't he?
He has. I think he's thought not.
He's got such a great life though. It's like, why would he?
Yeah.
Bro, this was awesome.
I enjoyed it. This may have been my favorite episode.
Now, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Just so people know, boom. For me and for us, I don't want to speak for Rachel, but for us, what we are looking to do with our candidate interviews, which we are going to do, is to be able to have interviews that are, based in some discourse, but at the same time, penetrate and get to the point of what we feel like people believe in. And the credit I'll give you, and I mean this sincerely, is that I've seen you make blunders, but you are about community, meaning you have the conversation about it. You have the conversation, even when something doesn't go the right way or the way that you wanted to. You're first on certain things. You're out there. You're not afraid to buck your own party system. I am probably a little bit now, didn't start this way, to the left of you. But honestly, I think you're a trustworthy guy.
Well, that's a high compliment.
Started in
I do.
podcast.
As a guy,
As a guy, as a politician,
you're a liar.
Yeah.
But like as a
You don't have
guy,
to qualify every compliment. You know, they're not going to click.
Just let it sit.
It's not going to be on my TV. You know, like Haley Stevens kept running Obama praising her. You know, I'm going to have the he's a trustworthy guy. It's all over, all over TV.
Thank you for joining us, bro. We appreciate you.
Appreciate
Jay.
There's that, folks. Real quick before I wrap things up here, a similar question that I asked to Sachi: has your opinion of Ro Khanna changed after seeing that interview? Because I guess for me, I would say it hasn't changed, but I have a lot more points of analysis for the reasons I don't like him, and the reasons I don't like him are pretty similar. He's very corporate minded. He's a little too wonky and not very charismatic and not very believable. I am not convinced he would go that hard against the tech oligarchy, considering his relationships with them. And I don't even think those relationships would save him from a barrage of, money being spent against him. Gavin Newsom's probably going to have a similar problem because these tech figures dislike Gavin Newsom, and frankly, he's an even more dislikable figure. I will say Ro Khanna is a lot less dislikable and a lot less, untrustworthy seeming than Gavin Newsom. Greasy Gavin. Narwhal by nature, you've just been hitting the hits tonight. I really appreciated you. Speaks like a think tank and is in his brainstem. No, thank you. That's just amazing. Yes. Pinkerbell said, or it's good for Gabby rather, said about the same. Etch said, you feel worse for him, if at all. Yeah, I'll say this. I didn't know how I felt about his political prospects, because I think he did okay in the NPR interview, but that said, watching it with Sachi, I think kind of did really stick out to me how wonky he is. And, Sachi and I are very wonky people, so we can appreciate and respect it, but I definitely think I remember big structural change from Elizabeth Warren and big structural Bailey, the dog. And that sort of thesis of change that Elizabeth Warren had in 2020, a lot more than I remember any of Ro Khanna's policies. Ro Khanna is, I guess, sticking to Medicare for all, if anything, but as we've seen in the 2020 race, Medicare for all got stretched into so many different things. I think Pete Buttigieg said Medicare for all who want it. Kamala Harris said a similar version where she was if Medicare for all. It's really only Bernie Sanders who really wanted true Medicare for all. So yeah, I don't know what to say there. Anyways, as my little curtain's starting to blow to the wrong side here, I am going to head out now. Tomorrow, I think, oh hell yeah, Infinite Content 801 or 8001, however you want to put it. Hey Dan, what's good? They've been suppressing your channel like crazy. This is the first time it's hit my feed in over a year. I've also made less content over the past year, so that's definitely to be expected. But I was just about to say thank you for being here, Infinite Content. I am going to head out now, but I want to stream sometime tomorrow, probably more in the morning. I'll see what happens. Look out for it. I'll be here, and if you miss it, you can catch the replay. But I wanted to also look at the LA mayor debate because it got spicy, and things are getting done in Los Angeles, I think, because Karen Bass is scared. And a lot of pressure is being put on by Nithya Raman's campaign. So I'm not sure how well Nithya Raman will do, because Nithya Raman similarly has the charisma of a piece of cardboard when it comes to a lot of these things, unfortunately. Even though she is like the Democratic Socialist aligned candidate. It's a very interesting debate, race and dynamic. And yeah, I want to hopefully get some folks from Los Angeles on at some point soon as well. Anyways, thank you very much. I'll probably stream in the morning because I think Sandy streams in the afternoon on Sundays. So I don't want to overtake her stream. So probably look for me in the morning. It depends. I'm gonna definitely be relaxed about it though, so forgive me. But thank you all for joining and being here. I will talk to you all probably tomorrow morning, so look out for that. Anyways, thank you, take care, and yeah, talk to you soon. Peace.